Wow, you Gnostics smell good. Find out on this episode of Talk Gnosis, use of oils and scents in ritual practice. Hi, welcome for Talk Gnosis for December 11th, 2013. I'm Bishop Kenneth Canterbury, and as usual, I'm being joined by my lovely co-host, Bishop Lainey Peterson. How are you this evening, Lainey?
I am wonderful, Bishop. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm really excited about the guests that you found for our show tonight. I think that Catherine is going to give us all some pretty useful information.
I think so. I'm going to introduce her.
Absolutely.
You want me to do it? Okay, sorry about that. Our guest tonight is Catherine Diedrich, the owner of Quadrivium Supplies. This is a company that makes and distributes ritual oils. And we're going to discuss the use of scents and oil in rituals, and she will also demonstrate the proper anointing of candles in ritual use. So welcome, Catherine. It's so glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can you just tell us briefly, how did you get into this line of work?
By having a very sensitive sense of smell, mostly. I was using commercially available oils, and I was not happy with the way that they smell. I thought, I think I can probably do this. It doesn't seem like it would be that complicated, and it turned out to be more complicated than I thought, but I figured it out eventually, started making my own oils. After a while, somebody said, I could totally sell these in my store, and I started a company.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Now, I know for me, scents are really important in my ritual use. I mean, whether it's in prayer and meditation, whether it is in initiatic work, all those things I associate very specific odors to. I mean, so for an example, I can do a specific work that I now associate with the smell of the incense burning, the certain anointing oil, and I literally, the minute I almost open up the vial and go to anoint myself, I'm almost transformed into a magical space, if you will, because after 30 years of association with those scents, it's very transformative for me. Do you find in what you do specifically that this is true for most people who use scents ritually?
It's true for most people in general. Scent pretty much bypasses our conscious mind, and it goes straight to the lizard brain, basically.
Okay.
It triggers memories, it triggers feelings, it triggers all kinds of things. And we don't necessarily consciously think about bringing that to the forefront of our minds, but it happens anyway. I don't know if you've ever had, not necessarily a religious memory, but any kind of a memory triggered by scent. There's a certain kind of soap that my mother used to use. Every time I smell the soap, I think of my mother. And so that's how it works for most people. But I think very especially for people who have worked with scents, incense and oils in a ritual setting, where really the smell of the oil is almost a shortcut to a magical space or to a ritual space.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree on, it doesn't even have to be in ritual. I mean, for an example, I made peanut butter fudge the other night, and it was my mom's recipe. But instantly, as I'm making my mom's peanut butter fudge, it brings up memories from being a child and watching mom stirring and making fudge. So, scents do, for me, sort of carry you away to these kind of old memories, if you will.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It does that for a lot of people.
Now, I want to talk a little about, I can go into any New Age shop and there'll be a huge rack of cheap oils there and saying they're good for this purpose or that purpose. But sometimes when I read the labels, it'll say something about it being an imitation oil or a synthetic oil. What is the importance of using natural herbs and substances as much as possible in ritual scent and oil?
Well, to get into that, really, we have to talk about tables of correspondence.
Okay.
And a table of correspondence it's a table or a list of objects or beings or concepts that are thought to be linked through a supernatural connection.
Mhm.
And it's common to most cultures. James Fraser talks about it in The Golden Bough. Paracelsus talks about it. It's in study of Kabbalah. It's even in the Book of Enoch, where they list fallen angels and their spheres of influence. So many sources will have what they call a table of correspondence, which will have a plant or a resin or a scent, and it will have a supernatural correspondence. Some examples of that are lemon and pine for cleansing, bayberry for employment, red pepper to drive away. And these are just tend to be the same through many different traditions. But what your table of correspondence is depends on you personally, what tradition you're from, how you've been trained, and also how you personally associate scent with other things. And with a table of correspondence, it is not just the smell.
Okay.
There is no table of correspondence that says love is linked to the smell of roses.
Mhm.
Love is linked to roses. And a synthetic scent of roses is not the same as an oil that has been distilled from real roses. So that's where the important part of using a actual essential oil comes in. There's also the safety aspect. Synthetic oils and fragrance oils tend to let off fumes when they're being burned. There's one in particular called diethyl phthalate, and
Excuse me.
it's actually something that's used to extend oils, make them go further. And that actually produces carcinogenic fumes that can be toxic if inhaled. And there are some oils that will list it as an ingredient, diethyl phthalate, because so many different oils have it in there. So, safety is another.
Safety and efficacy. We touched on the tables of correspondence. One thing that I will also say is I've seen a lot of books on the market that will have these tables of correspondence, but there's very little basis for it, or they don't explain their basis for that table of correspondence. What do you recommend people do when they're looking at an occult book or a New Age book that has a table of correspondence but no explanation? What do you think that they should be doing to do some research for themselves?
You can do some research. You can go back to medieval grimoires. You can go back to Plato. You can go back to Paracelsus. All of these things had tables of correspondence in them. The Western mystery tradition tends to be fairly consistent when it comes to tables of correspondence. So you can find them in a lot of different places. The important thing to look for is either an author that you trust or someone who explains where they got their table of correspondence from. Because this guy said so isn't a very good reason for making that your table of correspondence.
Right.
Absolutely. You also touched a bit on safety, the concern with the synthetic oils, and about there could be solvents or chemicals in there that could be dangerous to inhale. But there are other safety issues with oils as well. Just because something is natural doesn't mean it's going to be safe, right?
Absolutely. You don't want to be messing with it. For example, I mentioned red pepper. That's what's used in pepper spray. I mean, you don't want to get this stuff on your hands and rub it in your eyes. You have to be careful with essential oils as well as with the synthetics. You have to take precautions. These can be very strong oils. They can be dangerous.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know that there's lots of oils that are dangerous for consumption, for both humans and for pets. Some oils, that even on the skin, some like anointing oils, high in cinnamon, can break out the skin, cause, severe rashes and burns.
Some Thelemites I know actually seem to play a game of chicken in seeing who can stand the strongest oil of Adam.
Absolutely. Catherine, you're going to show us how to anoint a saint's candle.
I am. And what you were saying before is this is not necessarily the correct way to anoint a saint's candle. This is just the way that I have learned to anoint a saint's candle. So I'm just going to show you how to do that. The candle that I am using, I don't know if you can see it, is a St. Jude candle. And I am anointing it for a purpose. St. Jude is the patron saint of police officers. And I'm a volunteer with the Chicago Police Department. So one of the vigil candles that I burn is for the safety of the my local police. So generally what I'll do is I'll take a Sharpie and I will write on the bottom whatever my intention is. I might write the initials. I might write out a little tiny petition. I might write it down the side if there's not enough room on the bottom. And then I will use a skewer. You can get these in the supermarket usually, a bamboo skewer. You can get a metal one too. Those are more expensive. I'll also write a petition in the wax from left to right. Then I'll turn it clockwise and write the same thing again from left to right. And it doesn't matter if it's legible. As I said earlier, God knows what you mean, even if you can't read your handwriting. So you'll write your petition in there. Then you'll take the skewer and in 4 quadrants, you will make holes. It's usually pretty easy to do. And you drive in 4 holes around where you've written in the intention. And then in those holes, you can put herbs from your table of correspondence, small amounts because they can catch on fire. And then you will want to anoint your candle. And one of the important things to remember when you're anointing a candle is that you don't want to drown the wick. That is a mistake that a lot of people make. They'll just take a bottle of oil and they'll open up the top and they'll, put some in. You don't need to use that much oil. I'm using an oil that I actually did is specific for this purpose. It's called Be Safe, and it's made from protective herbs and oils. And I put some on my finger, and I go clockwise, usually twice, to get it all off my finger. And honestly, that is all the oil you need. If you are only using oils and not herbs, you can either use an eyedropper, or I use medical pipettes because, I do this a lot. And you can't see what I'm doing here, but you can draw up oil into it, and then you can just inject it into those holes. Again, you don't want to use too much. 3 or 4 drops, or even 1 or 2 in each hole is plenty. And then while the candle is burning, the oil mixes with the candle wax. And even if you don't get a very strong scent, you usually will get a scent. I tend to regard anointed candles as sort of like every time you light it, you're saying the same prayer. So, it's you've made the dedication. You've dedicated the candle. You've said the prayer. So therefore, every time you light it, it's sort of the same thing. You don't have to do it all over again. You just light the candle. One of the other important things, at least with candle magic, is to remember that you don't blow out the candle. You snuff it. If you don't burn it all in one go, and you don't have to, you can burn it for 15 minutes a night if you want to. You snuff it. You can, lick your fingers, take it out. I usually use an actual candle snuffer, but that's generally the way that it's done with a saint's candle.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been just an incredibly interesting show. We want to move on to just a little bit of news here, reminding everybody in the Chicago area that the local parish of the Jonite Church, parish of St. John the Revelator, is having its holiday nosh on this Saturday. If you are interested in joining us, please do so. It's going to be under the work of Deacon John DeGilio. He is the rector of the parish, and we all get together and meet once a month, but this is going to be our special holiday time, and your first beverage is free, and you can find out more details on meetup.com and just look up the parish of St. John the Revelator. And I want to thank you, Catherine, so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Where can we find you online?
You can find me at Quadrivium, QUADRIVIUM-supplies.com. I'm also on Facebook, in addition to a line of oils that I make and sell both on my website and in stores. You can find the oils in various stores. I also make custom oils and
Awesome.
custom incenses. I have a very large inventory of resins, plants, and essential oils. And so generally, if somebody is looking to have something made, I can, send them a list of what I have. They can buy their own ingredients, and I do give group discounts. So
That is really good to know.
And so you can work with people who have allergies and sensitivities and things like that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think I was telling you before, I made an entire line of planetary oils for a gentleman based on the Aurum Solis recipes for incense. And I made them with jojoba oil because he is violently allergic to peanuts. And so any kind of tree nut oil was out of the question because he didn't want to wind up dead. So, I'll work with people who have allergies, who have sensitivities, or who just don't like a particular smell.
Sure. That's really good to know. Well, again, thank you so much, Catherine. And again, I want to just remind everyone to make sure to look us up on Facebook. You can also look us up on YouTube and leave us comments at Gnosis at GnosticNYC.com. We always appreciate your feedback and your comments. Come by, like our page. Again, I want to thank the guests. This has been very informative for all of us. Lainey, do you want to tell us about our up-and-coming shows?
Absolutely. Next week, we do have a show change. Bishop Martin Jacobs will be joining us in January instead to discuss Christian theosophy. But next week, we're going to be talking about the meaning of Christmas for Gnostics. So we're having our Christmas show next week, and I hope you'll join us.
Awesome.
And as always, this has been a production of the Gnostic NYC Network. If you've enjoyed this show, please share it with your friends, click the like button, and subscribe to our channel. And opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the views of Gnostic NYC or any other organizations. And no animals were harmed during the production of this show. And for more Talk Gnosis, tune in every Wednesday for new episodes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Night.